Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about zodiac signs and their fears. At least what I believe are going to be strong fears associated with the various zodiac signs. Now, the first sign when I talk about, of course, I'm going to go in the chronological zodiac order. I'm going to start with Aries. Now, Aries is a sign that's known for the no fear concept, and that's one sign where you don't really would think there's anything that they're very fearful of. But I think the thing with Aries is maybe it's something where about maybe them losing in some competition or losing in some kind of battle, like say a legal battle, for example. The combative nature is strong with Aries, and I think Aries, one of their biggest fears would be just the simple fact of just losing at something in general. Now, the next sign we talk about is Taurus, and Taurus, I believe, seems like they would be very fretful, worrisome, or fearful as far as maybe money and not having enough to make their ends meet, or not having enough that they feel that they need for themselves, that whatever is their particular sufficient amount that they need. Loss of possessions, things of a material nature, I see Taurus maybe being rather fearful about. I think that those would be the things that come to mind with me as far as Taurus goes in fears. Now, Gemini, very loquacious, garrulous sign. I think one of the obvious things with Gemini would be losing some ability to talk or communicate or verbalize their thoughts and concepts or whatever. And I think Gemini has an aversion to monotony, so I think having getting into some kind of regimented routine would be something that Gemini would fear. That would be one of their, I would say, one of their biggest fears of everything. Not being able to have conversation with people. I think that falls right near the top of their list. Now, the next sign is Cancer, and Cancer, I think one of the obvious things one can come to as far as the fears go, I would say the fear of losing their home, of having to bounce around, have instability in their home life. As far as Cancer goes, even though Venus, which is associated with love, is over Libra and Taurus, I think one can make an argument that no sign can love maybe as strong as Cancer, or has that need for love as far as the sign Cancer goes. And I think as far as reciprocation in love, I think that's one of the things that they can truly feel. And in matters of family also, I think they fear anything as far as any chaos or upheavals that are connected with home and family life. I think that falls into some of their strongest fears as well. Now, the next sign to talk about is Leo. Now, Leo is known to be a very proud and dignified sign. I think the ego being damaged, whether it's losing at something, or some competition, or maybe just not getting the adulation, accolades, being at the center of attention, not getting their proper recognition in something, I think is something that Leo would fear a lot more than other things. And since Leo is a very loyal and steadfast sign, I think betrayal from a friend could really hurt Leo arguably more than the other zodiac signs. Now, the next sign we'll talk about as far as fears go, we'll look at Virgo. And Virgo is a sign that's very systematic and orderly, organized. I think one of Virgo's biggest fears could just have something that's disheveled, such as a home, or something where they have to, about a fear of not maybe being able to organize something or having difficulty. in putting something in order, which is doubtful with, I would say, most Virgos, because they have that penchant or knack for turning chaos into organization, so to speak. But I think that's one of the things that they may fear, or not having something to analyze and look at. And as far as the analytical part goes, Virgos can be very analytical, and they have ability to analyze arguably greater than any of the other zodiac signs. I think that's another thing that a Virgo could actually fear in their life. And I think health matters are strongly associated with Virgos. Virgos are about health and being prudent. Often, I'm not saying everyone, but Virgos can be very prudent regarding their diet and health, and as far as having maybe a regimented diet or a routine that keeps them very healthy. And I think being unhealthy is another fear that can be strongly associated with Virgo, because they do have kind of a little stronger fear, I think, of diseases and illnesses as opposed to the other signs. Now, the next one I want to talk about is Libra. And Libra is about balance and equality, being equitable. And I think one of the fears that comes to mind with Libra is perhaps the inability to maybe reconcile or to negotiate something with a friend, or not being able to mend fences, so to speak, with somebody. I think they don't like confrontation, strife, or discord. And I think for that reason, I think you look at it where they fear maybe having a quarrel with others, maybe because of the peace-loving nature, and especially with friends and people they know. They don't like the strife or any kind of dissension among themselves with friends, especially, I would say, and just in general. And I think that one of their biggest fears is just not having a peaceful situation, some situation that is not peaceful in their lives or tranquil. And that's what I see with Libra, not being able to maybe reconcile something connected with a partner or a significant other. Now, Scorpio. Well, Scorpio is an interesting one. I think Scorpio, maybe one of their fears is just maybe not being able to deduce or solve a mystery. This sign is generally fixated and enamored with truth, trying to figure things out, not knowing the truth about something, and perhaps getting one or more of their secrets unveiled. And I'm not saying it's always going to be a bad secret. Scorpio is often about privacy and being secretive, not disclosing or divulging a lot of things that they know. And I think one of their fears is like somebody maybe finding out just things about them that they rather would not tell others, something of a secretive or private nature. And I can imagine if a Scorpio personality, Sun, Moon, or Ascendant, they left their, say, their Facebook account open and they didn't log out and have a friend go under or something, and that would be something, I think, one of their stronger fears, perhaps over any of the other zodiac signs. And also seeing some of their private information, maybe that was on their, on something where maybe that they didn't want seen to them, or perhaps. So anyway, if we the next sign we'll look at is Sagittarius. And I think Sagittarius, we look at a fear associated with them, is maybe just the simple fear of not being able to be happy or jocular or jovial, running into depressing situations in life, something that will take the wind out of their sails and their expansiveness. I think that's some things you look at with Sagittarius as far as their fears may go. And Sagittarius is known to be very optimistic and upbeat and very outdoorsy. I think if you were to confine a Sagittarius to a room for a protracted or prolonged period of time, and being inside for too long, that could be one of the things that they have an aversion or have a fear of. So that's something with Sagittarius I look at. Now, the next sign, Capricorn. Capricorn is generally very astute as far as business matters are concerned. I think one of the things that they could fear is maybe somebody doing, maybe a contemporary, a friend perhaps, a rival, doing better than them at some kind of business endeavor or investment. I think those things of a more of a serious matter as far as business goes, I think that's the thing with Capricorn that they could fear. Maybe them not being as ambitious as maybe they should be, or not. Capricorn is known as the taskmaster of the Zodiac as well. And we look at Capricorn, maybe just not being able to have a better plan than somebody. It being an earth sign, it's very premeditative, and maybe not having the plan or following through on something that they plot out is something that maybe Capricorns can fear. And I think the having less enterprise or initiative in business matters as well could be something, as opposed to someone else. Maybe that's something that they might fear, being less successful in a business endeavor. Now, the next sign, Aquarius, is interesting because obviously Aquarius is very unique and often interested in esoteric subjects, can be very unorthodox and unconventional. And when we look at Aquarius, perhaps their biggest fear is just not to be different, is to be fear of being conventional or looking upon as being very conservative or traditional. Aquarius has the penchant for being different, for being unique. And I think when we look at Aquarius, it's the sign that dares to be different. And Aquarius is somewhat of the maverick of the Zodiac, so I think one of their fears could be just not being seen as unique, and maybe not having an innovative or inventive side to them. And I think that's something I look at Aquarius as something that they may fear. And maybe not having as many friends as the next person either, or as many as one of their friends may have, I should say. Now, last but not least, I'm going to talk about Pisces and their fears. Now, when you look at Pisces, Pisces is a sign that obviously is very sensitive, yet it's compassionate. Pisces is also a very idealistic sign, and they don't like to necessarily see the transgressions in others. I think a lot of them do see them, but they try to bypass them and overlook them, even though they're cognizant of it. And I think what happens with one of the fears with Pisces is that maybe a friend doesn't live up to the expectations that he or she has for them, and when the person finds out that maybe this person that they knew, one of their friends or acquaintances, didn't have maybe the qualities, the positive qualities or attributes that he or she anticipated, and I think that's something that really can hurt Pisces very strongly, and Pisces can be very sensitive, I believe, to something of that nature. When that person doesn't hold up to those ideals that the Pisces had for him or her, I think that's what is one of the things with Pisces, is one of their biggest fears, I would say. And remember, people, this is all pertaining to Sun, Moon, or Ascendant in these signs. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for zodiac signs and their fears. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be continuing my series with the North Node aspects. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel, but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis on a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because a person astrologically is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.